गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। ॐ योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्ताम् सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्नाम् अन्याश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं। प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं। प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं। बोलो भागवती मैया की जय। We are today entering the 18th chapter of the 11th canto, and this chapter is about the Vanaprastha as well as the sannyasis. The previous chapter was about the brahmachari and the grahastha, and the topic began by talking about the varnas and ashramas. And what are varnas? Varna is classification. These are the traits that are naturally found in human beings, that some are, how should you say, some are very lazy, they are called Shudras. Some are money-minded, they are called Vaishyas. Some are naturally leaders within the society. Good or bad doesn't matter, as long as they are leaders. Because if they are greedy leaders, then they will be bad leaders. If they are leaders who listen to Brahmanas, then they will be good leaders. So those who are leaders, those who have managerial skills, those who can motivate, inspire, mobilize people, they are called Kshatriyas. And Brahmanas are those who are committed to truth, Brahman. And how do you determine that these four? You determine these four by their knowledge and by their action. So their knowledge, they are putting it into action. And we also told that every person is born Shudra, every child is a Shudra, totally dependent. And it is up to each one of us how we allow ourselves to unfold, rather than get caught up in that my father is like this, so I am like that. No, you have to cultivate. Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra is not based on birth. It is based on Gyan and Karma. So this idea must once and for all be rooted out of our minds, that I am a child of a Brahmin, I am a child of a Kshatriya, I am a child of a Vaishya or a Shudra. No, only your knowledge and your actions are the parameters by which Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra are determined. So work towards it, work towards the higher. And in this way, that was told. And then the ashramas, these we find that every person who is born, he goes through these various stages of life, till death. And those, in general, if you are living a good full life, then first is the Shishu, the baby, and once that baby is grown up about 6-7 years, then he becomes the Brahmachari, and from Brahmachari he comes to Shishu, Brahmachari, then then that Brahmachari becomes Grahastha. From Grahastha, the next stage of evolution for the human, for the individual, is that he must in his mind, not necessarily physically, but in his mind, he must devalue everything that he has given value to in his life, including relationships, including possessions. And if it doesn't help, if you can't do that while staying where you are, then move away, then come to 11 Wolseley Avenue. Then you will go through the treatment here. You have to do the gardening, you have to do the cooking, you have to do the weeding, you have to take the bins out, which you might be doing also, but you will have time for sadhana. So that was Vanaprasth. And then when there is no more this idea in your mind that I need to let go of something. Why? There is no idea, there is no desire to let go of something, because your entire mind is hooked into realization, is hooked into the God, is hooked into Brahman, into the self. Once that happens, then that stage is called a sannyasi. So last week we saw the various traits of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra in detail in last 2-3 classes, and also the Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Brahmachari and Grahastha. So from today we will start Vanaprastha and the sannyasi. These two are still left. So we'll read 5 verses in 5 verses blocks, and that way it will be easier for everyone. अथाष्टदशोऽध्यायः श्रीभगवानुवाच वनं विविक्षु पुत्रेषु भार्यां न्यस्य सहैव वा वन एव वसेत् शान्तः तृतीयं भागमायुषः कन्दमूलफलैर्वन्यैः मध्यैर्वृत्तिं प्रकल्पयते मध्यैर्वृत्तिं प्रकल्पयेत् वसीतबल्कलं वासः तृणपर्णाजिनानि च केशरोमनखश्मश्रुः मलानि विभ्रूयाद्दतः न धावेदप्सु मज्जेत त्रिकालं स्थण्डिलेशयः ग्रीष्मे तप्येत पञ्चाग्नीन् वर्षाश्वासारषाज्जले आकण्ठमग्नशिशिरे एवं वृत्तस्तपश्चरेत् अग्निपक्वं समश्रीयात् कालपक्वमथापि वा उलूखलाश्मकुट्टो वा दन्तोलूखल एव वा. So let's look at these 5 verses. They say that, now remember, the first one we are taking is the anchorite. Anchorite means the Vanaprastha stage. And what are some of you are in Vanaprastha stage. I can see them and I know them. Some are getting there. Okay, because kids are growing very fast. So what are the traits of an anchorite? What he should do? First thing, he should vanam vivikshu putreshu bharya nasya sahaiva va vanam eva vaset shantah trutiyam bhagamayushah. In the third part of his life, what was the first one? Brahmachari. What was the second? Grahastha. What is the third? Now we are talking about Vanaprastha. This in the third stage of his life. What should a man do? Committing his wife to the care of his sons, the householder who is keen to retire into the woods. Only he who is keen to retire. Not because I must do it. फिर परेशान होकर वापस आ जाओगे. Or you will become a problem to someone. Who is keen to retire into enter the life of an anchorite, Vanaprast, should spend the third part of his life in the forest alone or with his wife, with his senses fully controlled. So both options are allowed. If the wife is not interested in following the path of Vanaprastha, leave her with the sons or daughters. Nowadays, different daughters also. Or make enough. There should be enough that she can live by herself and move and go. I know one person who's doing this every now and then. But he comes back. It's okay as long as you're not attached. He should spend the third part of his life alone or with his wife. If the wife is willing, see in the olden times, and even today, if you go to Rishikesh, you go to Haridwar, you go to Varanasi, you will see many couples there living like this. Many couples like this. And they have moved out. One day he cooks, another day he cooks, or they both go. Because once you are living in Varanasi, they give you the accommodation, and then you have to go and beg the food. It's not that there is no kitchen there to cook. You go and beg, do your bhiksha. Anchorite has to live like that. Then second verse says, Kanda Moola Falair Vanyaihi Madhyai Vrittim Prakalpayet Vasita Vatkalam Vasaha Trunaparna Jinanicha. He says he should subsist. Okay, here he's not even asking them to go and beg. He should, that's what they are doing nowadays. But here it is, Bhagavad is saying, he should subsist on wild bulbs, wild fruits, roots, which are fit for being offered into the sacrificial fire, and should wear as his apparel the bark of trees or matting etc. made of grass or leaves or deer skin. Basically, it is trying to take away your attachment to your silk clothes or cotton clothes or this color clothes or that color clothes. Choose one dress, one color. Simple. When we were brahmacharis, only white, then became yellow. Now it has initially it began with ochre color, which was more pinkish, but now I have become Eastman color. Anyone makes any color and gives it to me. The other day someone came, he made me white kurta and lungi. He said, Swamiji, it will look good on you. मैंने कहा क्यों भाई? नहीं, Sai Baba used to wear, so I made you white. So now I got a white one, 2 pairs. So someday you find me with white clothes, don't worry. So he says here, so all these practices, because when we are in Grahast, we are used to pakodas, we are used to vadas. Yesterday I had some. Then whatever we want, we just order, or we go to the kitchen ourselves. We whip up a pakoda, or we adai or coffee or whatever. But here now, all you can drink is river water or well water. But in jungle, no well also, so river water, and fruits and roots, that which is fit for the sacrifice, not just anything that is available. Then in the third verse he says, Kesha Roma Nakha नखश्म अश्रुमलानि विभ्रूयात् दत्तः न धावेदप्सु मज्जेत त्रिकालं स्थण्डिलेशयः. And then what he should do? He should allow the hair of his head as well as on his body, nails, moustaches and beard, as well as the dirt on his body to grow, and should not even scrub his teeth with a brush, etc. Should take a plunge bath after the manner of a pestle without rubbing his body 3 times daily, in the morning, evening and at midday. So when you see this, for this you have to go to Haridwar, Rishikesh or Varanasi and Trambakeshwar and many other places. Those who are, some people literally live by the word. They do not brush their teeth, they do not use soap, they do not. Just now I finished reading the biography of Swami Purushottam Anandji from Vashishta Gufa. He is like this. 3 times a day he will take bath if it is possible. But no scrubbing the body. 3 times dip or 5 times dip in the river or the tank of a temple, and out he comes. Washes his clothes, वहीं पे चक 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 करके धो दिया, सुखा दिया, dry it up, then and continue moving. And then morning, midday and evening, 3 times daily. Then ग्रीष्मे तप्येत पंचाग्नीन् वर्षाश्वासारषाज्जले आकण्ठमग्नशिशिरे एवं वृत्तस्तपश्चरेत्. In the 4th verse he says that in where did we go? We forgot, we did not complete it. He should not cut his hair, he should not do his eyebrows, he should not trim his moustache, he should not trim his beard or hair, he should allow no waxing of his skin. Nowadays boys have also started doing it. No waxing, no cutting of the hairs, no combing also, let them become jata. That's why when we go to Badrinath, some of you have been with me, you or Kedarnath, you see those bhayankar looking sannyasis. This is the reason, because they are living according to this. And then because we are interested in different types of cloth, so here it is told, don't wear that, खादी पहनो आजकल के लिए, कॉटन पहनो बस एक कलर या जो मिल जाए, whatever you get. But in those in the older times, that you wear the bark or the grass. Then in the 4th verse he says, in summer he should allow himself to be heated by 5 fires, one placed in each quarter about himself, and the 5th in the form of the sun blazing overhead. This also you will see many times in summer if you go to ashrams. If you go, not on YouTube you can see, of course, the recent famous person who made this Panchagni very famous was our Satyananda Saraswati from Bihar School of Yoga. He retired, handed over everything to the junior Swami, and went away 14 kilometers away from the main Munger. There built a hut every day for 7 or 8 years, something like that. I don't know how many exactly how many years. He did this Panchagni Tapa, 4 fires on 4 corners and the hot sun in the midday sun on him, and they have to do for certain number of hours every day. See, and then after he finished that, he sat down and did japa till japa of Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram till he breathed last. So here it is told that blazing sun overhead. During the rains he should expose himself to showers, while in the closing months Magha and Falguna of winter, comprising what is known as the Shishira Ritu and roughly corresponding to January and February of the English calendar, he should remain immersed up to the neck in water. He should practice austerities following this mode of life. This again, Purushottam Anandji, very good example, who lived like this. But he did not do the living in the water till neck. In some classes ago, I don't know if it was Bhagavad or some Vivek Chudamani or Gita class, I mentioned about Khopoli Baba near Lonavala. That Khopoli Baba, he was the follower of Nath Sampradaya. And he used to follow this exercise, not just for winter time. For many years he did this sadhana. What was that? Till the neck in the river there in Khopoli, he used to sit submerged in the water for quite a few hours every day. So when I met him in 2003, 4, 5, 3-4 times I met him. And that time, all his fingertips, all his toes were eaten away by the fish. He had no fingers left. They are all rounded butts. That was his sadhana. So why are all these things? Knowingly you are doing tapasya so that and doing it joyfully and remaining undisturbed by the various vows that you are taking, so that your mind becomes pakka. Mind must listen to us. Our problem is we listen to the mind to change, and in the mind comes, chalo pakode khate hain. In Grahasth ashram it is okay if you did not follow it, follow the rules as given in Bhagavad. But now if you are interested in sadhana, if you are interested in God realization, if you are interested in conquering this gravity of individual existence and transcend into the higher, then we have to set about doing certain activities which are going to help. First, we have to wean our mind away from our memories. We have to wean our mind away from dependency. We have to wean our mind away from the seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, tasting, whatever we used to. Every night we used to have sitar music and then go to sleep, or we used to have a novel, then go to sleep. Morning and evening we'll light a lamp, and then now there is nothing in the forest. What do you have? You have to let go of, you have to drop it and not feel guilty about it. This is practice of yoga kshemam vahamyaham. There, he could have done that in the Grahasth also, but we pray for our children's future, we pray for our future, we pray for whatever, grandchildren's future. Our project must become successful, our investments become successful. Now all that is left behind. One must produce. Not because I am going to enter Vanaprastha, so what's the point of doing all this? No, we must do. Do what is required to be done, depending upon where you belong. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. But when it comes to the Vanaprastha, one must allow oneself to go through the austerities, so as to, austerity, what does it do? Like we only dry wood can catch fire. So all the emotions, all the attachments have made us wet. And when we practice this Vanaprastha, we start dropping the attachments automatically. And now we are becoming we are becoming ready for the next stage, which is sannyas. So here in the fifth verse he says, Agni pakvam samashriyat kalapakvam athapi va ulukhalashma kutto va danto lukhala eva va. In the fifth verse he says, he is he is he is permitted to eat only what is roasted in fire or gets ripened by process of time. He can thrash wild corn in a mortar with a pestle and pound hard substances with a stone, or may use the teeth alone for a mortar and pestle. Fully aware of the place and time where and when a certain thing could be had, as well as of his own digestive power, he should personally get together all the means of his subsistence and should never use what was got at another time and laid by the for the future use. Meaning you can't collect things for every time you feel hungry, set up a time, go at that time, search for food, come back. If you can't find food, go hungry. No begging also. But in today's vanaprasthis are a bit different. What is being told here is ideal. Today it is 5-star vanaprasthi. No, none of you is going to practice it, so we move forward. 6th verse to 10th verse. Swayam sancinuyat sarvam atmano vritti karanam desha kala bala bhignyo nadaditanyada hrutam vanyaischaru purodashaihi nirvapet kala choditan natu shraute na pashuna mam tya. You keep your volume off, please. Natu shraute na pashuna maya jeta vanashrami agnihotram cha darshascha purnamasascha purvavata chaturmasyani cha munehe आम्नातानि च नैगमैः एवं वीर्णेन तपसा मुनिर्धमनि सन्ततः मां तपोमयमाराध्य ऋषिलोकादुपैति मां यस्त्वेतत् कृच्छ्रुतश्चीर्णं तपो निःश्रेयसं महत कामायाल्पीयसे युञ्जाट् बालिशः Koparastataha. He says in the 6th verse, Swayam sancinuyat sarvam atmano vritti karanam desha kala bala bhignyo nada atitanya dahrutam. So what he says here is, an ascetic should perform rites such as agrayana, enjoined at particular periods of time with oblations prepared out of wild products, but he should on no account propitiate me through the sacrifice of an animal as enjoined by the Vedas. So, nowhere, even in Puranas, no animal sacrifice is permitted. And see, when we are in the previous verse, it said, fully aware of the place and time where and when a certain thing could be had, as well as his own digestive power, means he is being asked to become very alert about everything. Every moment of his day is accounted for. No life of dullness. No life of sloth, no life of procrastination. You have to get up means you have to get up. You go to Varanasi, some of you came with me, Early in the morning we went at 4 o'clock, 4:30 for dip in the river. Already people are there. But we beat them one day. If we went at 3:30 or quarter to 4, we were there. But they start coming and they take first bath, first dip in the river, they take before sunrise. Why before sunrise? Because the water is warmer at that time. If you take after sunrise, the water becomes cool. So they always, those who know, they come early in the morning. Those who are lazy, they don't mind the cold. They will shiver, they will bring blankets along with them. So in this way, the ascetic should perform certain rites with the oblations that are available in the area that he is, but not to be. He should not buy anything. He should not beg anything. And therefore, when in 12th chapter Bhagavan says Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, so whatever is available, with that you do the prayer or invocation of the divine. Then in the 7th verse he says Vanyaischarupurodashaihi nirvapet kala choditan natu shrautena pashuna ma yajet vanashrami. We did that already. Okay. In the 8th verse now. In the 8th verse, Agnihotram cha darshascha purnamasascha purvavata chaturmasyani cha munehe amnatani cha naigamaihi. In the 8th verse he says that Agnihotra, offering to the sacred fire, an oblation consisting chiefly of milk, oil and sour gruel. Darsha, half monthly sacrifice performed on every Amavasya or the new moon. Purnamasa, the half monthly sacrifice performed on every full moon, and the 3 sacrifices performed at the beginning of the 3 seasons of 4 months each, under the names of Vaishwadeva, Varuna Praghasa and Shakamedha, have been enjoined on an anchorite as in the case of householder by the exponents of the Vedas. So this practice from the Grahastha he is continuing into the forest, into the Vanaprastha stage. But only thing is, he doesn't have the facilities of the house. He cannot buy anything. He cannot beg anything. Whatever is available. Otherwise here, little bit of thing is not available, immediately, oh papam papo karmaham, we immediately ask for forgiveness. What will you do if you are in a place where nothing is available? Then you have to make do with whatever is available. I am talking as if you are all already there. So, on all the times, the Amavasya, the Puranmasi, and the beginning of each season, he has to do special pujas. Then in the 9th verse he says, Evam chirnena tapasa munir dharma nisantataha mam tapomayam aradhya rishiloka drupaiti mam. In the 9th verse he says that having propitiated me, the embodiment of wisdom, through austerities undergone by him, thus a hermit reduced to a mere skeleton, literally spread all over with protruding veins for want of flesh, comes to me through successive stages from Maharloka, the realm of the rishis, to which he ascends in the ordinary course of the after death. So this is for the anchorite, it is for the Vanaprastha. Why it is vanaprastha only? Because he has not been able to give up desire. That is the problem. He has not been able to give up attachment. He has given up attachment to his family, maybe. He has given up attachment to his past, maybe. But he has not been able to give up attachment to certain other things, and therefore, for him, the stage by stage liberation is only possible. And where does he find himself at the end? He finds himself in the realm of the rishis, which is the Maharloka. See, then what's next? In the 10th verse, he says, Yastve kruchratchirnam tapo nishreyasam mahata kamayalpiyase yunjad balisha koparastataha. In the 10th verse he says that who could be more stupid than him who would divert such great tapas performed with great hardships and calculated to secure the highest good to the fulfillment of paltry desire, the desire for any material or ethereal fruit up to the attainment of Brahmaloka. So he said, the teacher, Bhagavan is telling Uddhavji Maharaj that it is really stupid if that person is only seeking siddhis, if he is only seeking swarga, he is only seeking the loka of the ancestors or the loka of the rishis. Bhur Sua Jana Maha Tapaha Satyam. Satyam is the loka of the Brahmaji. Vaikunt is above that. This is not Vaikunt. This is Satya Loka. Satya Loka also, it comes and goes. When it comes, you get 74 cycles of Chatur Yuga. That is one day of Brahmaji. So if you go there now, you got enough time to enjoy afterwards. But then in the end, when the Chatur Yuga cycle, 74 cycles are over, we are in the middle of it somewhere. Just after the middle. So when these 74 cycles are over, then equal period of time Brahmaji goes, just like you go into deep sleep, he also goes into deep sleep, into the unmanifest. Vaikunt is different. In Vaikunt, it is transcendental to coming and going. It is transcendental to involvement and withdrawal. So here Bhagavan is telling us that it will be foolish when he is going through such a great austerity. He has become skin-like, like Dadhichi Maharaj, who had become very bony. Or in ISKCON you can see, some photograph with all the chakras, and this fellow is only bones sitting there, and people get inspired. What a rishi, what a rishi, what a rishi. Go to Kedarnath, you will see some of them. We fed some of them like that. Kedarnath, Badrinath. See? But it will be foolish when you are going through such an austere life, a life of such tapasya. It will be foolish to ask for a higher realm than the Lord Himself. So don't make the mistake. Fall in love with the Lord rather than some higher and higher Swarga. Ultimate Swarga is the Satyalok, where Brahmaji is there. So this is the instruction of the Lord Himself to Uddhava, and through Uddhava He is telling us, don't shortchange yourself. Make sure that your destination is clear. You are not seeking any of the realms, the 7 realms. You are seeking for the divine. You are seeking for the Bhagwan only, nothing else. Nothing comes in between you and Bhagwan. So here from the 11th to 15th, let's chant. यदासौ नियमे कल्पो जरया जातवेपथुः आत्मन्यग्नीन् समारोप्य मच्चित्तोऽग्निं समाविशेत् यदा कर्म विपाकेषु लोकेषु निरयात्मसु विरागो जायते सम्यक् अन्यस्ताग्नि प्रव्रजयेत्ततः इष्टा यथोपदेशं मां दत्त्वा सर्वस्वमृत्विजे अग्नीन् स्वप्राण आवेश्य निरपेक्ष परिव्रजेत् विप्रस्य वै सन्न्यसतो देवादारादिरूपिणः विघ्नान् कुर्वन्त्ययं यस्मात् आक्रम्य समियात् परं विब्रूयाच्चेन्मुनिर्वासः कौपीनाच्छादनं परं त्यक्तं न दण्डपात्राभ्याम् अन्यत् किञ्चिदनापदी. In the 11th verse he says, Yadasau niyame kalpo jaraya jata vepathuhu atmanyak agnin samaropya mat chittognim samavishet. He says that when the ascetic, shaking with old age, is incapable of observing any longer the sacred vow to which he has pledged himself, he may withdraw the three sacred fires known by the name of Ahavanya, Grahapatya and Dakshina, that he has been maintaining and worshipping into himself, and with his mind fixed on me, enter the fire, burn himself to death. This is one option given. Burn himself to death. So this is very, very austere, and there are people who are following these paths. Don't think that they are not. There are still many people who are following this path. See, our Akhandanandji Maharaj's guru, Udiya Baba, he practiced the Panchagni, but he didn't stop there. He practiced Panchagni, tapas, he practiced the Vaikhari Madhyama Pashyanti Para, that tapas he did. He practiced the Kundalini also, he practiced the Kriya Yoga also. He practiced many different things. Vedanta also he studied. And then in the end he stayed with Vedanta. Before, when he was young, when he started, he went through different paths. In the end he stayed at Vedanta. And that with that Vedanta he came to Vrindavan. And people were laughing at him. Who is going to listen to you? Vrindavan is a place of bhaktas. Sab Radhe Radhe karte hain. Vedant kaun sunega? But he established himself there. And his disciple Akhandanandji was such a great exponent of Bhagavad that he was able to invoke out of Bhagavad, both in the way he presented it, both the devotion as well as the knowledge, and a perfect mixture of both when he presented it. Listen to his talk sometimes on YouTube. It's not, some of them are very old recordings, so not very clear, but some of them are clear. Good. Sometimes it sounds monotonous when he's speaking, but it's not monotonous. He's in that zone, and from there he's speaking. Then in the 12th verse he says, Yada karma vipakeshu lokeshu nirayatmasu virago jayate samyak nyastagni pravrajayet tataha. In the 12th verse he says that when, however, he develops a thorough distaste for the higher worlds into the realm of, up to the realm of Brahma, the creator, as a reward of pious acts done from an interested motive, so till Brahmaji's abode, Satyalok, you want something as a result. When you're thinking of the Ishvara, of the Bhagwan, you don't want anything except the name. You're chanting and surrendering yourself to Him. As long as the search is objective in nature, the maximum you can reach is Satyalok. When the search is subjective in nature, where you want to obliterate your existence, you are ready to dissolve your ego completely by surrendering, then alone Ishvara is possible. Otherwise, even an iota of objectivity before the final plunge, before the final absorption, you have missed it. You have missed it. You are at 98. Snake and ladder. If you come to 99, yeah, you can say it is 99. Why? Because that particular snake, when he eats your coin, you have to start the game all over again. Exactly the same way. If our search is objective in nature, then we can reach 99, but we cannot win the game. And for winning the game, you will have to take birth again. If not in this kalpa, next kalpa is always there. देर किस बात की है? So here he says, which verse we were on? 12th. 12th, na? हाँ, 12th. So here he says, though as a matter of fact, no better than hell, abounding as they do in sorrows, he may, on the sacred fires having been withdrawn into himself, renounce the world and go about as a mendicant recluse from the very ashrama in which he may be stationed. So a sannyasi should be on a move. So which means that option is given to this recluse. That he gives up everything, including all responsibilities for the fire also. And then he may, on the sacred fire, being withdrawn into himself. Now, see, this is where Vedanta comes in. So when you say the sun in Panchagni, you say the sun in the fifth one. But if you see the fifth one within yourself, then you don't have to depend on the sun outside. Then you do the sadhana within yourself. If you see Kailash outside, no, I have to go to Kailash, I have to go to Kailash. But if you see Kailash within yourself, then you don't have to go anywhere. There was one priest in the Shankar Maharaj, a great saint, Dattatreya avatar, he used to go and stay in the temple quite often to do his sadhana and all that. And one day the priest, he was thinking, in the morning, while in meditation, he was thinking, this Swamiji, all lawyers and engineers and barristers and rich people are only with him. I am stuck to this in Triambakeshwar. And he says, I'm stuck in this kshetra. He was the kshetrapal. He has to do the puja every morning and every evening. So he can't leave that kshetra. He's in charge as a priest. And he says, when will I get a chance? My whole life is going here. I wanted to see Kailash. I wanted to see Jagannath Puri. I wanted to go to Badrinath, Kedarnath. And this way he was ruminating in his own head. And he was coming back after the bath from the river or the tank, and still this thought is pursuing in his mind. And suddenly he looks up and he sees Shankar Maharaj coming in front of him. And Shankar Maharaj called him by his name. He says, "Go home, get ready quickly, and you come and meet me there. Don't tell anyone where you are going, but tell your wife that you are going away for the whole day. You might be late tonight, or you might be late. So you make sure that someone else is there to do the puja, your son or whoever." So immediately he dresses up and he goes and he takes him to some place and he says, "Now you are not supposed to open your eyes till I tell you. Whatever you may feel," Shankar Maharaj is saying, whatever you may feel light, you may feel you are flying, but you should not open your eyes. Only open eyes when I ask you to open. And don't worry, I am taking care of you. And he closed his eyes. The moment he closed his eyes, suddenly he felt as if he has taken off from the ground and he is flying through the air, and he can't complain, he can't speak anything. As he's going higher, it's getting cooler and cooler. When you go up into the sky, the air becomes rarer. The heat of the earth is not there. But he doesn't complain. And before, just as it was getting unbearable, suddenly Shankar Maharaj said, "Now open your eyes." He opened his eyes and he found himself in Badrinath. Arey Vah! And he took him inside, and the priest there welcomed Shankar Maharaj with great, respect and everything, and allowed both of them to go to the Garbhagriha also and do the particular puja, and he explained everything. Then like that they went to Kedarnath, then they went to Gangomukh, then they went to Puri, Bhubaneswar, then they went to Dwarka, then they went to Kanyakumari, Rameshwaram, the Jyotirlingas, everything they covered. And in the evening, before the sunset, he was back in his place. See, he did not even open his mouth to tell the Sadguru, Shankar Maharaj, that this is my wish. Will it be possible for me? But that compassionate master came to know what is going on in his mind. In one day, he had the darshan of everything that you can imagine in India. Now this person is so sad. He says, "Arey Vah! Now I don't have to go anywhere because I know everything. I have had the darshan of everything. Now I can, die peacefully without a desire that I have not done this or I have not done that. Now I can concentrate fully on the Lord. Otherwise, this thought of doing pilgrimage was hijacking me all the time, my mind." See? So here he says that having withdrawn the fires into himself, that seeing that these three fires are burning within him only. See? And then he should withdraw, he should renounce the world, even the comfort of the ashram. From where he was performing all his rites. And where are we? Renounce the world and go about as a mendicant, recluse from the very ashram in which he may be stationed. Mendicant, recluse means the one who keeps, their rule is one. What is that? More than 3 days they should not live anywhere. More than 5 houses they should not beg in any place, in any bhiksha. If 5 places they beg and they ask for bhiksha and they don't get anything, they have to go hungry. And if someone says, "Swamiji, please come and stay with us," stay maximum 3 nights. Then off you go. So the reason being that you are not a burden to anyone. You have decided, मेरा छप्पर ये आसमान है. नीले गगन के तले. See? So no dependence. Only out of love they go and stay with someone, but that too for so that they do not become a load or load on the family with whom they are staying. In the 13th verse he says, Ishta yathopadesham mam datva sarvasma mrutvije agnin swaprana aveshya nirapeksha parivrajet. In the 13th verse he says, having propitiated me according to the precept, the Prajapatya sacrifice, after performing the eight types of what is happening there? The mentality of accumulation. Sannyasi does not collect anything. If it's there, good. If it's not there, also good. If it's there plenty, I'll take only what is required what is needed. Then 20th verse, ekascharen mahimetam nissang. यही है ना? हाँ, एकश्चरेन् महिमेतां निस्संग संयतेन्द्रियः आत्मक्रीड आत्मरतः आत्मवान् समदर्शनः. In the 20th verse he says, with his senses fully controlled, he should perambulate this earth all alone and free from attachment, finding recreation and delight in the self-possessed and viewing all alike. So each word now, the qualities that he should inculcate, they are being told. What are they? Ekascharen mahimetam. Ekah, all alone. Chare, walk around. Mahim, earth. This way he should walk around alone on the earth, nissanga, without attachment, sanyatendriya, with his senses under control, atma krida, playing with his own contemplation of the self all the time, or whatever he is interacting with in the world, as he is walking around, seeing that this whole creation is nothing but the self alone, atma krida, atma rataha, reveling in himself, atmavan, established in himself, through equanimity, samadarshanaha, having an equanimous disposition, he should move around alone on this earth. Now the last, another 5 verses from 20th to 21st to 25th. Vivikta kshema sharano madbhava vimalashayaha atmanam chintayedekam abhedena maya munihi anvikshetatmano bandham moksham cha jnana nishtaya bandha indriya vikshepo moksha esham cha sanyamaha tasman niyamya षड्वर्गम मद्भावेन चरेन्मुनिः विरक्तक्षुल्लकामेभ्यो लब्ध्वात्मनि सुखं महत पुरग्रामव्रजान् सार्थान् भिक्षार्थं पुरविशं चरेत् पुण्यदेशसरिच्छैल वनाश्रमवतीं महीं वानप्रस्थाश्रमपदेषु अभीक्ष्णं भैक्ष्यमाचरेत् संसिद्ध्यत्याश्वसा सम्मोहः शुद्धसत्त्वशिलान्धसा. In the 21st verse he says, Vivikta kshema sharanah madbhava vimalashayah atmanam chintayat ekam chintayed ekam abhedena maya muni. In the 21st verse he says that dwelling in a lonely yet secure abode and keeping his mind pure through devotion to me. So, where is a lonely yet secure abode? It can be an ashram, it can be a cave, it can be a hut he has built himself somewhere. Yeah? Narayan Swami originally, he was following the footsteps of Ramana Maharishi. Initially, he found himself in the Arunachaleshwara temple. So that their same cave there, he used to sit there, meditate, but dependent on the priest for the food. And when he got one reprimand that you are only looking for food, is that why you have come to the temple, occupying a room, doing a hoax of meditation and only attention on the food all day long? Immediately he packed up whatever, he hardly had anything, found some plastic sheet, some rope, and went to the top of Arunachala. 7 or 9 years he stayed there. We met him once in 98. That time he was already 2 years there. No food and only little bit of milk or water. Initially people used to bring food, but then his problem was he had to go to toilet. Or Arunachala, where will he go for toilet? So he said, no, I am not going to eat or drink. I will drink only enough to keep the body hydrated. No going to loo also. 7 years, imagine, not eating, sitting in Padmasana for 7 years. Only remembering the Lord. Let it be day, and that's the Agni Kshetra. Arunachala is Agni Kshetra. It's very hot in daytime. Very, very hot. And that too on top of the Arunachala. The rock gets hot during the day. 7 years, winter, summer, rain, he was sitting there. It's not a wishful thinking, to become a sannyasi. Papad belne padte hain. Finding where is he? Dwelling in a lonely yet secure abode and keeping his mind pure through devotion to me. The sage should contemplate on the self as one and undistinguishable from me. The Purushottam says many times he went through many difficulties in life, and he had a limp in his knee, rheumatism. Yet everywhere he walked, Gangotri, Yamunotri, Kedarnath, Badrinath, Uttarkashi, come to Rishikesh, walking. No transport that time. We are talking 33, 35, 40, not 40, earlier, 20s and 30s. With that limp, he used to cover 20-30 kilometers every day. And he writes there that, on this date I reached here approximately is just in general, not particular date, but this year I went there and on the way I did not get any food, but what to do? I found some water stream, I took bath and I sat down, and now if I'm not getting any food, how do I overcome this hunger? Only one way. He used to absorb his mind into the Lord. When you absorb yourself into the Lord, your body disidentified. If your body disidentified, no hunger. And next morning he'll get up and start walking again. See, ये तपस्या है. Dwelling in a lonely yet secure abode and keeping his mind pure through devotion to me, Ananyas Chindayanto Mam Ye Jana Paryupasate. The sage should contemplate on the self as one and undistinguishable from me, so that this self alone is the Purushottama. This self alone is the Lord. The Lord alone is expressing as the self. which I am. This consciousness that I am, it is the total consciousness. This way, see yourself as inseparable from the divine. This is the practice, this is the contemplation that is being suggested for the sannyasi. 22nd verse. Anvikshetatmano bandham moksham cha jnana nishtaya bandha indriya vikshepo moksham esham cha sanyamaha. In the 22nd verse he says, by inquiring into the truth of things, he should investigate the true nature of bondage and liberation of the self. Bondage consists in the distraction of the senses and liberation in their full control. Distraction, very simple. If you are extrovert, you are distracted. And the distraction, and when you are extrovertedness begins from accepting yourself to be the body. When we say body, body, breath, mind, intellect. Gross body, subtle body, causal body. This is one body. Body does not mean only this body, physical body. No. So whenever we use the word body, it automatically it includes. Many places you have seen, even here in Uddhav Gita, that he tells one or two senses, then he says, leaves it. So you have to understand that all the five senses. Same way here, when it says the one word body, it already presupposes that it's a conglomeration of gross, subtle and causal, put all three as one. So by inquiring into the truth of things, he should investigate the true nature of bondage and liberation of self. So what is bondage? What is liberation? Vivek, he has to practice. Attachment to changing is bondage. Being the unchanging is liberation. Here he says, Bhagavan says here, that liberation is the full control of the senses. And if there is no control over the senses, it is bondage. Simple. Here when we say senses, we are talking about 6. Seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, tasting and mind. Mind and intellect put together as one unit. 6 senses. So if these 6 senses are moving outwards at the drop of a hat, lost case. But if these senses by natural default are ever introverted, contemplating or chanting the name of the Lord or remembering the Lord or doing the Vivek, discrimination between the changing and the unchanging, then you have hit the jackpot. It automatically will lead to liberation. And what will be liberation? Complete control of the mind. So whether you chant the name of the Lord, Vaikari Madhyama Pashyanti, from gross to subtle, subtle to causal, unmanifest, from unmanifest Paravani, you transcend. And where does Paravani go? If you keep doing the practice sincerely, regularly, then that Paravani reaches the Sahasrara, liberation. See? By the time you have come to Paravani, you have already transcended the mind. Or I should say, you have gone to the last bit of sattvic mind now. See? So now mind is no longer a disturbance. Mind is disturbance only in Vaikari, Madhyama and Pashyanti. It can keep fluctuating there. But if you are awake and you do the exercise, the sadhana correct properly with bhav, then nothing can stop. You cannot invoke para. Only when all these three are matured, you have risen above them, you have purified them, then the para vani will automatically begin. And when it begins, then waking, dream and deep sleep do not trouble you. All the commissions and omissions of the waking and dream, they do not trouble you. Sleep doesn't overpower you. See? So here he says that, and where is sleep is for the mind, waking and dream is of the mind only. And now you have gone beyond the mind. Mind continuously keeps fluctuating between these three states. Paravani means you have gone beyond the three states. So whether you do it through japa, whether you do it through yoga, whether you do it through chitta vritti nirodha yoga, or you do it through pranava dirgham uccharyam manorajyam viliyate, by regular chanting of Om with the outgoing breath, you dissolve your mind. That is another exercise. Ravan Maharishi says, do the prana bandhanat leena manasam. He also says that where the in breath and the out breath meet, dive into that juncture. Your mind will vanish. Now in that point, you begin the inquiry of who am I will automatically kindle. Or you begin from the beginning only, who am I? So n number of ways. But important thing is that we must become introverted. We must seek the unchanging principle. We must seek our own essence. All changes have come and gone, but I have remained the same. My consciousness has remained the same. With everything, with childhood I have not gone, with teenage I have not gone, with middle age I have not gone. Because the black hair have become white, so with black hair went away, so I went away. No, I am still there. From healthy body to unhealthy body, but I am still there. Changes are in the changing. I am the unchanging principle. For that, you need to take a cup of tea and sit down and start contemplating like this. And once the mind, it clicks, suddenly it will click. It clicks only by His grace. But we have to keep attempting. And when it clicks, continuing, tasman niyamya shadvargam madbhavena charen munihi virakta shullakamebhyo labdhvatmani sukham mahata. In the 23rd verse he says, therefore, keeping in check the six senses, the five external senses and the mind, I already told you that, the internal sense, and averse to the trifling pleasures of sense and finding abundant joy in the self, the recluse should go about the world contemplating on me. No more seeking thrill in life. Seeking thrill, adrenaline rush, that's also an attachment. But if you read some biographies of Mahatmas, man, they're living more thrilling life than us. See, but they did not, they just keep going. Life happens to them. They are ever in their poise. For us, we are seeking to do something in order to gain pleasure. We are ticking off the bucket list. They don't have a bucket list, only one: merging into the divine. That's the only one. For that, the lifestyle of the recluse is so that he does not get attached to any damn thing. Not place, not time, not object, not people, not possessions. You must have heard this story. King Janak, he is a great sage. He is a Rajarshi. One sannyasi came to his place. He says, they say you are a Rajarshi. He says, what people say, what can I say about it? He gave him good respect and everything, and did the seva of the sannyasi, food, everything. And then when sannyasi was ready, they say, you are a sannyasi, you are not attached. He says, no, I am not attached. He says, then come with me. He says, okay. Immediately he started walking. So the sannyasi made a comment that after they were outside the city, he said, oh, you didn't even change into ochre clothes, simple clothes. You came with all your paraphernalia. You're still wearing the crown, you're still wearing the jewelry, you're still wearing your silken clothes, you're still wearing your kamarband and all the jewels and rings and everything. He took it off and dropped it on the road there only. And just in the dhoti he went after him. When they reached the edge of the forest, and sannyasi or the sadhu, he had a call of nature. So for call of nature, the sadhu has only one pot. In that kamandalu he eats food, in that kamandalu he takes water and drinks, in that kamandalu he takes water and goes to the call of nature also. With that kamandalu only he takes shower also, bath also. And he realized that he did not bring his kamandalu with him. He said, oh king, I left my kamandalu at your place. Oh, we'll have to go back. I can't go forward if I don't have a kamandalu. How can I drink water, and how can I take bhiksha, and where will I get another kamandalu from? And they went back. And then the sannyasi was ready to go again. Then he says, you are not coming. He says, no, I am not coming. So why? No, you are a kacha sannyasi. You are a kacha sadhu right now. He says, how come? He says, I could leave the whole kingdom. You said it and I left everything. You told me I am wearing ornaments. They are still lying there on the road. And you couldn't let go of one kamandalu. Immediately he fell at the feet of the Janak Maharaj, recognizing the greatness of this great sage king. See, here it says in the, which verse we are on? 23rd. He says, therefore, so keeping in check the six senses and averse to trifling pleasures of senses. चलो आज आइसक्रीम खा लेते हैं, अरे आज चलो पकोड़े खा लेते हैं, या चलो यार आज चलो, I have not seen a strawberry farm for a long time, let's go there. I haven't seen this for a long time, let's do that. I haven't been shopping for a long time, let's go for shopping. This is all running after play. Senses are still not under control. But you will find Mahatmas also doing this. Realized masters also doing this sometimes. So the question that was asked in Sri Ramana Gita. The realized master is also, when we see him, he is also seeing, he is also waking, he is also sleeping, he is also bathing, he is also going to the call of nature, he also feels hungry. And we, if you call us ignorant, we are also doing the same. So how come he is great and we are not great? If he is doing the same, all his activities are similar to ours, then what makes him a great master and what stops us? Why are we not called great masters? This is the reason that his senses are under control. Your attention, the ignorant people's attention is only on the body level, only at the action level. Whereas the realized master is at any given moment, he is in communion with the divine. At any given moment. Not only is he in communion with the divine, wherever his six senses move around, he sees divine only. He sees divine, he hears divine, he tastes divine, he smells divine, he feels divine. There is no second experience for him that we cannot even imagine, as much as we may try, because we are imagining from our mind. He is not imagining. That is his direct experience. He has transcended the mind to be established in the self, and from the self, this is his disposition. This is his poise. So here, finding abundant joy in the self, the recluse should go about in the world contemplating on me. Last one, second last one. Puragrama vrajan sarthan bhikshartham pravisham charet punya desha sarit shaila vanashramavatим mahim. In the 24th verse, he says he should perambulate the earth full of holy tracts, rivers, mountains, woodlands, and hermitages, entering towns and villages, cowherds, stations, and caravanserais only for the sake of alms. But at the same time, think, such a self-controlled person, such a person whose senses are completely introvert, he who is established in the self, the more places he goes, he is a living auspiciousness moving around on this earth. इसीलिए उनको साधु बोला जाता है. Living auspiciousness. Anyone who comes in touch with him, anyone who gives him something, we say that way. Scriptures say that way. He's not going around, no, I have to go here now, I should spread auspiciousness here because I am realized. Now I should go to this town, I have not been to this town because I have to spread auspiciousness there. No, that is not his name of the game. Wherever intuitively the forces of nature take him, he goes. He has got no agenda. If someone says, let's go this way, he will go that way. It does not matter to him. He goes this way or that way. Because everywhere he is. Everywhere. There's no place he's not. So, he moves around the whole earth only for the sake of alms and nothing else. The side effect, if I may say, is the blessings that place, that land, that town, that business, that shop, that house, that family, that forest, that river is getting by his presence. Vanaprasthashramapadeshu avabhikshnam bhaikshyamacharet sansiddhyatyashvasangmoha shuddha sattva shilansdhasa. He says, he should often beg alms from the hermitages of anchorites, for his mind being purified by the hermit's food obtained by gleaning grains from the fields, he is rid of infatuation and attains the goal of his life soon. So, see, this is again another message that is coming to us again and again, and that is our thoughts in our mind are directly proportional to the quality of food that you are eating. Fresh food, fresh thought. Stale food, stale thoughts. Dirty thoughts, uncouth thoughts. Oh, we must try, just like here for him, he is taking alms. From whom? Those who are themselves purified. So at least we can do that in our houses. Start somewhere. That eat fresh, eat clean, less canned food, less old food. See, in the end, that also doesn't matter, because this is from the recluse sannyasi point of view. You can, I told yesterday, I think yesterday it was Gajanan Maharaj story I was telling, or last week I was telling. It was there. He didn't care, he was eating from the gutter. It didn't matter to him. But he is established. Here it was, this recluse, he is on his way to realization. He is on his way to realization. But the name of the game remains the same, that we should move around unattached, remain detached from our six senses, and whatever we put in only from pure sources. You should not become obsessed with it. Either you go to a pure source, or whatever you are eating, have no agenda. While eating, don't think, oh, this is from yesterday, or this is from tomorrow, or this is... No, not like that. Take it as prasad, consume it. That attitude will benefit. That attitude will benefit. It's not... But for a gross person, gross thinking person, yes. Stale food, stale thoughts, fresh food, fresh thoughts. Prasad, if you eat prasad all the time, then prasad buddhi. You will have thoughts of the Lord all the time, over the period of after some time. So in this way, he should beg alms from the hermitages of anchorites, from the vanaprasthis, or those who are living in the ashrams and forests. His mind being purified from the hermit's food, he will, and as a result, rid of infatuation and attain the goal of his life soon. It does not matter what. One rule we should make: whatever comes in front of us, we should eat. Chupchap. That's all. प्रसाद करके क्या हिंदी में बोलते हैं, प्रसाद लेके करके दबा दो. So I think we will conclude here for today, and will continue now. What should this recluse, this sannyasi, contemplate upon? What should be his line of thinking and contemplation? That will be given in the next few verses. And what should be his attitude in life, and all those things are... We'll take it in our next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम।